Hey everyone, Neo from the Overclocker magazine. So today I'm looking at my first V-Color DRAM kit ever. Not too long ago at Computex, I had the great pleasure of visiting the V-Color booth and talking to one of their marketing people. And just from that interaction alone, I could tell that V-Color literally has its ear to the ground in terms of the latest gaming and overclocking trends. But it's recently announced their overclocking CU DIMMs at a scorching DDR5 9200, a good 2000 mega transfers faster than the memory kit we have here today. This one is for the gamers, as this is the Lost Ark Edition of the memory. V-Color, in partnership with the game developer, are even offering in-game bonuses for owners of this memory. This may not be relevant outside of Taiwan, but it does speak to what I said earlier about V-Color keeping its ear to the streets in terms of gaming and overclocking. That aside, the unfortunate bit here is that V-Color memory isn't available in South Africa, at least not yet. However, you can buy their products on Amazon, even though the Lost Ark Edition memory isn't available on Amazon Web Store, but only on the V-Color website. The memory comes in two configurations: DDR5 6000 for the AMD platforms with Expo, and DDR5 7200, which is the kit I have here for the Intel systems, which I have to say, at $159 isn't necessarily cheap, but I was not expecting it to be. The design may not be for everyone's taste, but I find it appealing somewhat. I mean, to be honest with you, I genuinely didn't think that there would be any RGB lighting available for the memory at first, until I powered it on and I was pleasantly surprised that, oh, the actual RGB lighting comes across very well despite the gold or opaque looking bronze diffuser or light bar. As you'd expect, all lighting is strictly controlled by the motherboard software, as V-Color provides no such utility. Spec-wise, it's nothing out of the ordinary. DDR5 7200 at CL34, 4545 at 1.4 volts. ICs, of course, are Hynix A die, and in fact, V-Color makes this easy for you to figure it out on the Amazon web store by having an entire section of DRAM dedicated to just Hynix A die. Initially, I had stratospheric expectations for some reason when it comes to this memory, and I think it's influenced by V-Color's propensity for high-speed memory kits or super low latency SKUs, as we found out. And I was anticipating some really awesome overclocking headroom for this memory. So, did the memory live up to these expectations? Well, I'd have to say yes and no at the same time. So here's the thing. While I could get into Windows and obviously the BIOS at DDR5 8600, I wasn't able to make the system stable. Fine, maybe you could call that the CPU IMC limit, which it likely is. However, I could not stabilize even DDR5 8000 at 1.5 volts. Oddly enough, I could do DDR5 7800 CL36 at 1.5 volts, and the system was rock solid with fairly low temperatures for the DRAM and SPD hub. And it's in light of this that I decided to test XMP, DDR5 7800 CL36, and DDR5 7200 CL32. So DDR5 7200 CL32 is what I'd say expect from this memory, and probably the best setting for it. The reason is simply because it has the lowest absolute latency out of all the settings, and it's doable on just about every Intel 600 and 700 series motherboard that exists right now. As always, however, if you're going to go for low speed and tight timings per se, the bar by which I measure all memory is the Mushkin Redline Lumina that is sold at DDR5 6400 CL30 3737 at 1.35 volts, also making use of Hynix A die ICs. So, was the V-Color kit capable of doing that? Unfortunately, no. I got errors even at 1.45 volts or 1.4 volts even. So clearly, that's asking a little bit too much from the ICs on this DRAM. But that aside, I'm still in favor of 7200 CL32 settings. As you will see in the benchmark shortly, it's practically offering the same performance as 7600 CL36, but at a lower voltage and with a higher likelihood of being achievable by anyone and everyone on just about every motherboard that exists today. Without further delay though, let's just get into the numbers. Testing as per usual was done on the Intel Core i7 14700K, the ROG Z790 Apex Encore, and of course powered by the XPG Fusion 1600 watt ATX 3.0 PSU. Footage is captured in the MONTECH King 95 Pro, featuring the MONTECH Hyperflow ARGB AIO, all of which is available at Bootware. First up, we have IDA 64 memory bandwidths. I'll say it now, this is where you'll notice the largest difference between the various speeds. Everything that follows points to a CPU limitation in terms of performance scaling. That being said, IDA 64 shows the performance gain between XMP and 7800 CL36 to be between 12 and 28%. In writes, you can add up to 27 gigabytes per second by just overclocking from XMP to 7800. Latency, as per usual, is self-explanatory. We see a reduction of about 10 nanoseconds between the best setting and the default XMP settings. Then we move on to Benchmate 7-zip benchmark. And here we see the differences between XMP and the highest overclock is just 3.6%. Oddly enough, this is about a realistic difference in gaming between these settings, and you'll see that later on. Geekbench 3's memory test score shows a 25% gain in performance going from the XMP settings to 7800. 7200 CL32 is not far behind at just 3.7% behind. SuperPi32M gave me a score slower than I expected, but the performance scaling is as you expect with 7800 CL36 leading. Oddly enough, the 7200 CL32 didn't perform as well as I had expected, and it's most certainly due to my sub timings, which can be greatly improved, I must say. Handbrake H.264 video encoding is another test where increased memory speed has zero benefit. In fact, CL32 7200 makes going any higher a pointless exercise. Cinebench R23 is the other test I was talking about, where there's next to no performance gain going from XMP to 7800. Clearly a CPU limitation that more memory bandwidth simply cannot help. Next up is the V-Ray 6 benchmark that shows that when the memory bandwidth limit is alleviated, the bottleneck goes elsewhere, hence no scaling between 7200 and 7800. Would be interesting, however, to see how Intel's Core Ultra CPUs scale in this test in relation to memory bandwidth. Finally, we get to the gaming benchmarks. Despite using an RTX 4080, I dropped the test resolution to 720p to hopefully eliminate any possible GPU bottlenecks. That said, 7200 and 7800 are actually delivering identical results, both faster than XMP of course. Forza Horizon 5 is the next test, and once again we see no difference between CL32 7200 and CL36 7800. XMP is of course at the bottom, but once again we see diminishing returns with tuning. Cyberpunk 2077 behaves much the same way as all the other games, fundamentally no difference between a tuned CL32 7200 and 7800 at CL36. A more powerful CPU or GPU perhaps is needed here to show the differences. Finally, we have Dying Light 2, and by now you've seen the trend. There's simply no difference or very little difference between 7200 CL32 and 7800 CL36. So there you have it, all the performance figures from XMP to the highest OC, and as you can tell, there's little to no point in going above 7200 CL32, add to which 7800 needs a voltage I'd rather not run daily if I can avoid it, because in as much as there are kits that sell at 1.5 volts and that is safe, why would you want to do that when 1.45 volts 7200 CL32 delivers exactly the same performance as you've seen? So overall, is this a decent kit of memory? Looks-wise, it's pretty interesting. I'd not say it's the best V-Color kit in terms of visuals that V-Color has to offer, but it does have a unique look to it like no other RAM has on the market. I genuinely like the black and gold contrast, but I will admit it may not be for everybody, and it doesn't pop the way that other DRAM color schemes and combinations do from V-Color. That being said, for the price on the V-Color store, this is a competent kit of memory. Not sure why I was not able to crack the 8000 mark, but I do suspect it may be an isolated thing that's particular to this kit. Nonetheless, for a memory kit at this price, V-Color has actually delivered. With that said, let me know what you guys think of the memory in the comments below. Until the next time though, please take care of yourselves, share, like, subscribe and all that good stuff. And until the next time, I'll see you on the flip side. Peace.